thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Welcome to Policy and Rights, the show about government policy and human rights. Welcome back to Policy and Rights here on Depictions Media Radio. I'm your host, Michael Clogs. Well, over the weekend we heard about rocket fire, exchange rockets between Israel and the Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. As they fired rockets across the border, well, maybe there weren't as many rockets as we actually thought. Maybe it was more of a fizzle than it was a fanfare. There were IDF targets actually hit by the Hezbollah. That while that remains true, but I heard this from someone who actually lives in Lebanon, that while there were jets in the air, rockets going overhead, that people still went to the beach, people still lived their lives, and it wasn't as all-encumbering as we might have thought it would have been, the retaliation between the Hezbollah and the IDF. So, but there is something to be said, because while I got the report from a friend in Beirut, as we were talking about things, and we're talking about that the struggle that, of course, the Hezbollah being one of the warlord parties from the 1970s that have managed to continue forth in Lebanon as a political strength, even though it is known, of course, by the United States, Canada, and Britain as they're terrorists, and they are in that particular country, of Lebanon, they are a legitimate political party, not just a hate group designed to go around the world blowing things up. So with all that, we were also discussing some of the political happenings around the world. We also discussed some of the things that are happening in the United States, whereas Kamala Harris is actually picking up steam with her political party, with the Democrats and her campaign, and the Republicans are losing ground in their campaign. As I watch what's happening in social media, especially on X, it's like some of the things that I may have answered to, that we do need to understand that Kamala Harris, as vice president, did actually have a stake in some of the things that we would think would make sense, such as gun control and making sure that illegal weapons don't wind up on the street committing crimes. After all, law-abiding weapons do not commit crimes because they're in the hands of those who want to obey the law and abide by rules. Those weapons that are out there committing crimes, of course, are the ones that the ghost guns that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden together worked on finding a way to regulate ghost guns so that they would be trackable on the streets. And Mr. Trump had no party in that. Mr. Trump is standing on the idea of illegal immigration, saying that it's the illegal immigration that's causing the crime. And he has no basis for that, and I said so on X. And it would seem that the Trump campaign is fueled by hatred, and we simply have enough hatred in our world, and we need to do something to curb hatred from here out. If that means electing a fantastic woman into the office of the United States of America, then that is what we should do. Okay, so moving forward along with that, since we're on the whole political thing, we had a lot of political happenings in Ottawa with the Liberal Party. They have come back from retreat, and they're going into the school year, because yes, we are about to head into the school year here in Canada next week. I'm reporting to you right now from it is August 26th, and within the next 5 to 6 days, schools will be open for business, and our children will be in classrooms. They're trying to ensure that the $10 a day daycare is instituted, regardless if it actually hurts a for-profit business or not. That according to the rules of getting the funding, you have to be a nonprofit in order to qualify for the $10 a day daycare funding system. If you are a for-profit business, you would seem to be disqualified. And that question came up and was redirected several times at Minister Sutts, which we'll hear from her in a little bit, as there are other things that have happened. The Prime Minister announced a tariff against Chinese EVs. Well, as we're going to hear also from Chrystia Freeland, the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister, that some of that makes sense. That why, as we're a country that stands on human rights, why would we want to support a electric vehicle program that harms the environment and hurts workers in China? It kind of makes sense. Okay. Tariff it so that we trade with them on other things. There is the idea also that we do, as a nation, about $100 billion in trade with China. So we have to be careful about that, as we're going to hear from Minister Jolie. As Foreign Minister, she has a tough job when we decide to, as a government, the government decides to tariff one product. How do you balance that out? So Minister Jolie, as Foreign Minister, has her work cut out for her to ensure that, hey, we still get all the really fun products that we want around us, such as, hey, fact of the matter is that I'm surrounded by Apple products, and a lot of Apple stuff is actually made in China. In fact, remains that. So, make sure that I still get access to my Apple products. And for those of you who are listening, who are my LGBTQ friends and that are fighting for equality and for Palestine to have its own, and Palestinians to have their own country, and to end some of the colonialism that is actually happening there. My apologies, but we all have to have our vices. So there's a lot happening, as we're going to hear about the foreign worker programs being slashed. We're also going to hear about that inflation is coming down. Well, I kind of hesitated that one. The Prime Minister says the inflation is coming down, so does the Finance Minister. Also say that inflation is falling, but I don't know, because when I go to fuel up my vehicle and when I go to the grocery store, I'm still paying high prices. It's something that, but it is something that they are also discussing. And going back to the back to school thing, there is a institution of a food program, because, all right, yeah, we don't want to see any kid arrive in a classroom hungry, because it does distract them. We also I do have to question something about what kind of food are they actually going to be serving. Now the government has control over the food that our children are getting for a large portion of the day. Is that food going to meet the standards that I would want to feed my kids at home? It's a legitimate question, and no one seems to have been able to answer that. What are the food programs actually going to be serving? So we have to also ensure that if these programs are going to be in place, that they have to meet a certain standard, and the standard is completely set by the government. But can we trust them to actually set the standard? So some things that we should be questioning. So there's a lot going to be happening that you're going to be hearing as the cabinet had, and the Liberal caucus had a retreat, and that they're coming back with saying how they're going to make changes to adjust to the economy as they are seeing it. But the economy as the government is seeing it, does it match how we are seeing it as the people? Are they truly in touch with us, or are they still going to go with, hey, let's make sure we feed the corporations and, impoverish the people? So why don't we go listen to, right now we're going to listen to a few minutes of the opening statements that Prime Minister had, and then we'll hear the rest of the ministers as they speak.
Bonjour tout le monde. Good morning, everyone. First off, I want to start on the rail dispute. I want to make sure that everyone knows how grateful we are for all the hard work that people did on resolving this rail dispute. All parties involved, the minister stepped up. I think Canadians fully understand just how important it is to keep our economy rolling, keep making sure that families, workers, businesses are supported across the country, and that's where everyone came together and got this done. Tout d'abord, en ce qui concerne la dispute ferroviaire, je tiens à remercier toutes les parties pour leur travail acharné. Je pense que tous les Canadiens et Canadiennes comprennent à quel point il faut garder notre économie en santé, il faut livrer pour les travailleurs, pour les entreprises à travers le pays, les familles, et c'est pour ça qu'on est tellement content d'avoir vu une résolution à ce niveau-là. Moi-même, j'ai passé les 2 derniers mois à rencontrer des Canadiens et des Canadiennes d'un bord à l'autre du pays et beaucoup m'ont fait part de leur situation et de celle de leur famille. J'ai écouté les attentes des Canadiens, les besoins. J'ai réfléchi à comment mon gouvernement et moi pouvons continuer de mieux soutenir les Canadiens. We worked hard throughout the summer, focused on getting the things we put into Budget 2024 done. That's what people across the country are counting on. They need support, they need help, they need investments, they need programs that are delivering for them in a way that responds to the challenges they're facing in their daily lives. So we unlocked tens of thousands of affordable housing units while streamlining the process to build more homes faster. We launched more affordable monthly mortgage payments. Pas plus tard que hier, nous avons annoncé les premiers terrains fédéraux qui seront loués et non vendus, idéalement, pour garantir la construction d'un plus grand nombre de logements abordables pour les Canadiens. Le régime des soins dentaires a déjà aidé plus d'1 demi-million de Canadiens auparavant non assurés à obtenir les soins dentaires qu'ils sont en droit de recevoir. We've been working hard on expanding $10 a day childcare across the country and getting a national school food program in place as soon as possible. Families are looking at back to school this week, and we need to make sure we're getting kids the best food possible as they're getting into that school year. But through negotiations over the summer, it's clear that some provinces are dragging their feet on these negotiations and throwing up roadblocks. You'd think we can all agree that Canadian families deserve affordable childcare and that every child should have good food available to them at school. But if you listen to Pierre Poilievre and his Conservatives, that would be wacko. Well, we're going to continue to step up and deliver for families. Good food in kids' bellies at school means they can concentrate, but also means that takes pressure off families' grocery bills. So back to school is right around the corner, so my message to premiers is to work with us to get this done, and done fast. Kids need it, and families need it. 2 years ago, in the aftermath of the pandemic and facing severe labor shortages, we adjusted the program for temporary foreign workers. That's what the business community needed. That's what the business community was asking for. And at that moment in time, those changes helped. They helped the economy, and they helped businesses make it through a challenging moment in our economic recovery. But today's economy is very different from it was 2 years ago. Inflation has started to come down, employment is higher, and we no longer need as many temporary foreign workers. We need Canadian businesses to invest in training and technology and not increasing their reliance on low-cost foreign labor. It's not fair to Canadians struggling to find a good job, and it's not fair to those temporary foreign workers, some of whom are being mistreated and exploited. So I asked my minister to work on this over the summer, and we are taking action. We are tightening the rules and restricting eligibility to reduce the number of low-wage temporary foreign workers in Canada, with exceptions in certain industries like healthcare, construction, and food security. We'll also be looking at changes to the high-wage stream of the program as part of the minister's expedited 90-day review. So to those who would complain about worker shortages, here's my message. There is no better time to hire and invest in Canadian workers. Nous allons réduire l'utilisation du programme pour faire entrer des travailleurs étrangers temporaires faiblement rémunérés. Nous regardons également des modifications au volet des postes à haut salaire après que le ministre aura procédé à un examen accéléré, un délai de 90 jours. À ceux qui se plaignent de la pénurie de main-d'œuvre, voici mon message. Il n'y a pas de meilleur moment pour investir et pour embaucher des travailleurs canadiens.
Hello, everyone. Bonjour. It's that time of year again. It is the time of year where parents are once again thinking about back to school. And as the Minister for Families, Children and Social Development, I am also thinking about back to school. as I get my kids ready to head back, as I continue also to work with the provinces and territories to roll out both our early learning and childcare program across this country, as well as the National School Food Program. So our early learning and childcare program, we have seen some incredible progress over the last few years, but of course there's still more work to be done. I'd like to highlight that at no point in history have we seen such historic generational investments to create a national system that will benefit generations to come. And as we move forward, we have already seen 750,000 families across this country benefit from this program to date. And we've seen 115,000 new spaces created across this country. We have 8 provinces and territories already at $10 a day, and all other provinces and territories on track to get there by 2026. These investments are, as I mentioned, they are historic investments that will benefit, of course, not only families today, but families for generations to come. The savings that families are seeing right now vary across the province, anywhere from $3,000 to over $14,000 per child each and every year. And so, as I continue to work with the provinces and territories, I am calling for all provinces and territories to continue to work with us to ensure that we see 250,000 new spaces created by 2026, and that will mean more families having access to this high-quality, affordable care, which means shorter wait lists and more families benefiting from this program. At the same time, I'm also having conversations with provinces and territories as we move forward with the National School Food Program. And, I truly believe that everyone in this country would agree that we do not want to see children at school hungry. And so I look forward to continuing those discussions and hope to have more to share on that very soon. Thank you very much.
Hi, Minister Suds. Mia Rabson from the Canadian Press. I'm just wondering if you could update us on the status of your sort of own deliberation on Ontario's request to lift the for-profit limits. I know that was something you were supposed to talk with Todd Smith about, and then he resigned. Has that caused any delay in that, and what's the status of your consideration on that?
Well, as I shared previously, prior to him resigning, the only conversation that I was interested in having with the province was with respect to moving forward with a sustainable funding model for our childcare operators here in Ontario. Since that time, we have seen the province announce that funding formula, which will come into place on January 1st. Obviously, there's been a change in minister at the provincial level here in Ontario, and I look forward to engaging in dialogue with Minister Dunlop, obviously as she gets into the role and gets fully briefed.
Does that mean you're rejecting the request from Ontario to lift the limits on for-profit spaces?
My job as we roll out this national child care program is to ensure that the highest quality, accessible, inclusive, and affordable spots are created. As we move forward with all of our agreements with provinces and territories, we have made the decision to ensure that this is a public system, predominantly favoring non-for-profit spaces. So I am always open to conversation with my ministerial colleagues across the country, and I look forward to having the opportunity to speak with Minister Dunlop.
But you didn't answer the question. Are you rejecting that request, or are you still considering it?
I have not had the opportunity yet to meet with Minister Dunlop.
Aaron Beswick from the Chronicle Herald. Again on the issue of for-profit and not-for-profit funding. In Nova Scotia, certainly outside of Halifax, because for-profit daycares, they're small business operators and they're women primarily who will run small businesses, and they've found that they have not been able to be approved to create new spaces and expand their businesses because of provisions in the funding formula with the federal government that say that nonprofits have to be prioritized. But in most of these towns, the nonprofits don't exist. So are you willing to make changes to the formula to allow, small for-profit daycares to receive funding under the Canada-Nova Scotia Agreement?
Sure, I appreciate the question. Nova Scotia is faring quite well when it comes to rolling out the childcare program here in this province. They made a commitment to create 9,500 non-for-profit spaces over the 5 years of the agreement. They are at over 5,000 of those spaces already announced. And most recently, were able to submit their 3-year action plan, which is a requirement of our funding agreement, which lays forward the plan of how they are going to create those 9,500 spaces out to the end of the agreement. And so they've been able to do so. They have demonstrated that they are committed to the agreement, committed to creating the spaces, and committed to getting to $10 a day by 2026.
Yeah, but if you're in Antigonish and there isn't a nonprofit creating spaces, if you're in Sherbrooke, if you're in all these places where nonprofits don't exist to create the daycare spaces, but there are small business people, and they're all the ones I've spoken to are female small business people and entrepreneurs who aren't able to provide a service that the community needs. Like, are you going to allow for that? And if not, why not? What's wrong with small business owners running daycares?
Well, I would first point out that obviously those that were already functioning, that were already providing amazing service here in the province, continue to do so and are part of the program. They were by no means excluded. But having said that, as I just mentioned, Nova Scotia is required to move forward and to present to us a 3-year action plan, which they have done. And in doing so, needs to ensure in that plan that they demonstrate the ability to provide spaces throughout the province, including rural, including francophone, including serving children with diverse needs. That's what the action plan calls for: accessibility, inclusivity, and getting to $10 a day by 2026. And so, if the province has already demonstrated their ability to meet those targets and to move forward, and I look forward to continuing that work with them.
Hello, everybody. Bonjour tout le monde. I hope you're doing well. I hope you had a great summer. I'm here as your foreign minister in the context of this cabinet retreat to talk about different issues that are important to Canadians, including, of course, what is happening in the world. We know that a lot of the geopolitical instability is causing a lot of anxiety with Canadians. And also we know that affordability issues are linked to the fact that there are so many supply chains that have been disrupted because there are so many geopolitical tensions. And we saw it again today with what happened in Kyiv and Ukraine. And of course we condemn these attacks by Russia. And at the same time, we saw it yesterday with the Hezbollah attack on Israel, and Israel standing to protect its own security. So my goal is to make sure ultimately that Canada is there to work on different solutions, at being able also to find solutions that are linked to bringing back more stability, while of course at all times defending Canada's interests. Donc je vais juste dire ça en français, puis après je vais prendre vos questions. On sait qu'il y a beaucoup de tensions géopolitiques à travers le monde, ça crée beaucoup d'anxiété chez les gens. Et aussi, c'est lié aux enjeux liés à l'abordabilité. On sait que les choses coûtent plus cher parce qu'il y a eu une disruption des chaînes d'approvisionnement. Puis en même temps, on sait que les différentes tensions géopolitiques créent affectent directement la sécurité, le sentiment de sécurité des Canadiens qui sont préoccupés par ce qui se passe dans le monde. On l'a vu encore aujourd'hui avec ce qui s'est passé à Kiev et un peu partout en Ukraine. D'ailleurs, on condamne les attaques de la Russie contre l'Ukraine. Et en même temps, on l'a vu hier avec ce qui s'est passé en Israël et avec, dans le fond, les échanges de tirs avec le Hezbollah, qui est une entité terroriste. Mon boulot comme ministre des Affaires étrangères est certainement de bien positionner le Canada pour trouver des solutions pour calmer les tensions géopolitiques, mais encore et toujours défendre les intérêts des Canadiens. Alors, ça va me faire plaisir de répondre à vos questions. Please go ahead, Ashley. It's been a long time. Good to see you.
Ashley Burke, CBC News. Minister, how concerned are you about the situation in the Middle East escalating to a full-out war, and what is Canada doing about it?
Yeah, so listen, I was just on the phone with the Jordanian foreign minister. I've had many conversations with different U.S. officials, of course with Jake Sullivan again yesterday night on this issue, and I've been in contact with my Egyptian colleague. So, of course, we are working every day to support parties to get to a ceasefire. This is my #1 priority, a ceasefire and the release of all hostages. And at the same time, we call on parties to make sure that there's no escalation, because obviously we need to bring back peace to the Middle East. It's in Israel's long-term security interest to do so, and it is, of course, in the interest of all the peoples living in that region. And that's what we're doing. I'm doing many phone calls, many meetings, and I've been doing a lot of shuttle diplomacy, as you know.
The military earlier this summer confirmed that they
Sorry, I can't hear you well. Can you?
The military earlier this summer said that they were working on a contingency plan in case they need to evacuate thousands of Canadians that get stuck in Lebanon. Where is that at right now? Are you moving forward with evacuation plans at this point?
So, as we speak, of course, the travel advice for Lebanon is the same. So, if you're in Canada, please don't go to Lebanon. If you're Canadian living in Lebanon, please come back. And so we saw it, tensions continue to rise, and we saw it even yesterday with what happened between Israel and Hezbollah. So we will continue to update our travel advice as things continue to unfold, but at the same time, my advice to Canadians have been the same for now many months. And I would say also that, of course, Canada works with many countries in the region, and of course, we always abide by our duty of care. At the same time, we need to make sure that Canadians don't put their lives at risk or the lives of their loved ones. Thank you.
Mia Rabson from the Canadian Press.
Hi, Mia.
I'm just curious what conversations you have had, or if you plan to have conversations with China about retaliation related to the EV tariffs that were announced today. Did you talk to them ahead of time, and are you concerned, or do you have any idea what China is planning to do in response?
Okay, well, you know, you've heard me just beforehand. As Foreign Minister, my job is always to defend Canada's interests, and it is in Canada's interest to impose tariffs on Chinese EVs, and that's why we did it. At the same time, I think it's important that we engage pragmatically with China. That's also why I went to China this summer, to make sure that we could address these issues. And I indeed raised the issue of the EV tariffs consultation at the time. And also, of course, we've also this morning advised China that we would be doing so. So the fact that we are engaging with China diplomatically doesn't mean that we can't continue to defend our interests, and that's exactly what we will continue to do, and you'll see more of that in the coming weeks.
I'm also wondering if you could comment on the developments in the United States this summer, particularly with the Democratic Party switching leaders, signs of momentum, growth. Do you think that the Liberal Party here has any lessons to take from them?
Mia, when it comes to the U.S., of course, I always have the same line, and it will always be that we will engage, notwithstanding who is elected in the White House. We've gone through an Obama administration, we've worked with the Trump administration, and we have worked with the Biden administration, and we will be ready when it comes to November. And for the rest, we are now working at a cabinet retreat here to make sure that we're concentrating, focusing on what Canadians need. And for the rest, the Prime Minister has my full support. Thank you, Mia.
Bonjour, Madame Joly.
Allô, comment ça va?
Radio-Canada. Très bien, merci. Pour revenir sur le Liban,
Oui.
il y a quelques semaines, il y avait eu un certain déploiement à Chypre, une trentaine de militaires. J'aimerais savoir, est-ce qu'à ce point-ci, ce déploiement-là a changé? Est-ce qu'on envoie plus ou moins de militaires sur le terrain? Et comment on se prépare à une éventuelle escalade là, vers une guerre plus totale?
Bien, premièrement, l'objectif du gouvernement et de tout le G7 présentement, c'est de s'assurer qu'il n'y ait pas d'escalade des tensions. Donc, on a eu plusieurs conversations avec, bien entendu, Israël, avec la Jordanie, avec l'Égypte. J'ai parlé également avec mon homologue libanais encore récemment. J'ai parlé avec des pays qui parlent à l'Iran, parce que le Canada ne parle pas à l'Iran et le Canada ne parle certainement pas au Hamas, ni au Hezbollah et ni au Houthi. Donc, dans ces circonstances-là, je travaille avec plusieurs de mes homologues à travers le monde pour s'assurer qu'on puisse contenir la chose. Mais au final, Fanny, le plus important présentement, c'est qu'il nous faut un cessez-le-feu. Il faut que la violence cesse, il faut que les otages soient libérés. C'est la position du Canada. C'est la position du Canada maintenant depuis plusieurs mois. Donc, on va continuer de faire en sorte de travailler diplomatiquement là-dessus. Entre-temps, on sait qu'on a des Canadiens dans la région. Et donc, nous, notre boulot et mon boulot, c'est de donner un avis qui est clair, net et précis sur lequel les gens peuvent se fier par rapport à s'ils devraient voyager dans des endroits à travers le monde. Et lorsque vient le Proche-Orient, particulièrement le Liban, notre message est clair. Si vous êtes Canadien et vous voulez vous rendre au Liban, n'y allez pas. Si vous êtes Canadien au Liban, c'est le temps de revenir à la maison. Et entre-temps, oui, on va travailler pour s'assurer qu'on ait beaucoup d'effectifs dans la région, parce que je pense que c'est la bonne chose à faire, mais je pense que Monsieur, Madame, tout le monde doit prendre ses responsabilités parce qu'au final, c'est leur vie qui peut être en jeu et c'est également la vie de leurs proches qui peut être en jeu. Et moi, c'est ça qui me préoccupe. Moi, je veux juste m'assurer que les gens puissent prendre des bonnes décisions basées sur les faits auxquels moi j'ai accès et que je veux être capable de leur transmettre en toute connaissance de cause.
Et vous avez dit à ma collègue Mia que vous avez que M. Trudeau peut avoir vraiment votre appui.
Oui, tout à fait.
Est-ce que vous avez l'impression qu'au sein des troupes libérales, et là je ne parle pas nécessairement du cabinet, mais vraiment au sein du caucus en général, il y a ce même appui enthousiaste à Justin Trudeau et est-ce que vous pensez que ça va tenir pour les prochains mois? Merci.
Bien, j'ai répondu déjà à la question. Le premier ministre a mon appui. Puis moi, mon boulot présentement, c'est d'être la meilleure ministre des Affaires étrangères dans une situation qui est assez difficile, qu'on n'a jamais vue depuis la Deuxième Guerre mondiale. Alors, chaque jour, je continue à faire mon boulot et puis je continue à m'assurer de protéger les intérêts des Canadiens. Merci, Fanny. Yes, Tonda.
Hi, Tonda McCharles.
Hi, good to see you. Good, only woman asking me questions. That's good. Hi.
To Mia's point, though, I think the question wasn't so much around, can you work with any administration? We know your answer to that. I think the question we're trying to draw out from you is what you learned from watching the races south of the border, how the dynamic has been so fluid, if you had any takeaways for your own party and your own future fortunes. And I know you say you're busy working as foreign minister, of course you are, but you're also a minister in Quebec and you would have concerns around the party's electability in all kinds of places. So talk to us about how you see the way forward in the next few months to ensure your own re-election, your party's re-election.
Well, listen, okay, I'll start with the U.S. When it comes to the U.S., we're following very, very closely. I've told you that. And, of course, we're following the dynamics on both sides. The race is very tight, and that's the only comment that I will make on what's happening in the U.S. And
in the
no,
US.
I know, Tonda, I
Okay.
know, but let me finish my answer. I've given you the time to ask your question. And meanwhile, I'm engaging with the Republicans and I'm engaging with the Democrats, with the Biden administration, with the Kamala Harris team. So that's been what I've been doing behind closed doors. Meanwhile, here, of course, we're connected to what people think. Of course, I've been connecting with people in my own writing. I've been door knocking also while being foreign minister in La Salle Verdun. And I'm confident that we can win the by-election in La Salle Verdun. Meanwhile, are people preoccupied about affordability, housing? Of course they are. And we're not disconnected from that. So we need to work on it, and we need to be able to provide the hope that is necessary in these times where a lot of people are feeling lots of anxiety.
Is that the only problem you see that lies ahead, trying to prove to Canadians you can deliver results? Is that the only thing you think is the change thing that's needed, that people are
Well, listen,
looking for?
I think when it comes to politics, it's all about trust and whether people trust the work you're doing as a government. And I think the challenges we're facing are real. And we're not the only country facing these challenges, but we have to be better at it to make sure that we're delivering results, period. And so the proof is in the pudding. That's what we'll be working on.
Thank you.
Can I?
Yeah, just one last one.
I'll ask.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask quickly on
It's okay. It's been a long time. Go ahead.
on China.
Yeah.
We announced Canada announced tariffs this morning, and also announced the consultation of potentially more tariffs coming down the road. And yet we also heard from the Prime Minister that this is an important trading relationship, but we still want to have normal trade with China. You talk with Chinese diplomats regularly. How confident are you can strike this balance of bringing in tariffs, bringing in more tariffs potentially, but keep the trading relationship otherwise normal? I mean, how confident are you that you can keep this trading relationship without escalating from tariffs, retaliation? How do you strike that balance?
We've taken a very strategic decision, which is to protect the EV supply chain in Canada and, of course, in North America. And that's why it was so important for us to impose tariffs like we did. I think that when it comes to China, indeed, we have a very important trade relationship, $100 billion per year. And therefore, we need to engage diplomatically with China to ultimately bring predictability to the relationship. And that's the only thing that I can tell you today, because ultimately right now this decision was taken based on what we thought was in the interest of Canadians. Thank you. Good?
Yeah, merci. Along with my colleague. Bonjour tout le monde. Hello, everybody. We wanted to come and make ourselves available today. As you've heard from the Prime Minister today, the economy has changed, and as Minister of Jobs and Official Languages, it's my responsibility to read the labour market and see what changes are taking place, and to make sure that, along with my colleagues here, building houses faster than ever before and making sure that our immigration levels continue to build our economy. We're making changes today to the Temporary Foreign Worker Program, and with the changes that we already started in March that took place in May, we will have, with today's changes, about 65,000 fewer people participating in the Temporary Foreign Worker Program. Why is that important? It's important because we want to see Canadians and permanent residents have access to entry-level jobs in what has been known as the low-wage stream up to now, and we want to make sure that Canadians have access to those jobs. It's also an important part of our overall program to have more compliance in the Temporary Foreign Worker Program and also to stamp out abuse. And so working with Minister Miller on levels plan, taking 65,000 people out of the Temporary Foreign Worker Program is an important step. Donc, en français, aujourd'hui, nous avons annoncé le fait qu'on va réduire le nombre de participants dans le programme de travailleurs étrangers temporaires. C'est très important avec les annonces que j'ai déjà faites en mars, qui ont pris lieu en mai, et les annonces qu'on a faites aujourd'hui. On va avoir une réduction de à peu près 65 000 participants dans le système de travailleurs étrangers temporaires. Et c'est très important parce qu'on veut que les Canadiens et les résidents permanents aient accès à ces emplois de prime abord, et ça va aider aussi avec les chiffres qu'on est en train de travailler avec M. Miller. Sachez que l'immigration, c'est critique pour nous, c'est critique pour notre pays. 99% de la croissance de notre économie est basée sur l'immigration, et donc ça va continuer d'être très important. Je vais passer la parole à ministre Miller et ensuite ministre Fraser.
Merci, Randy. Donc, l'annonce d'aujourd'hui fait partie intégrante du plan de réduction que nous avons annoncé plus tôt en année de 7% à 5% de gens qui sont ici de façon temporaire. Dans la dernière retraite du cabinet, j'ai annoncé plusieurs mesures quant à la restriction à un cap, un maximum qui serait mis sur les étudiants, par exemple, qui occupent une grande partie de la composante de gens qui sont ici de façon temporaire. The announcement made today by Minister Boissonnault and by the Prime Minister is part of the piece of the puzzle related to the reduction of temporary workers from 7% to 5% that I announced earlier this year. This year's level plan, to be announced in a couple months, will take into account and give a fuller portrait of temporary residents and permanent residents in this country. There are more measures to be announced that will be coming up. This isn't the last measure to be announced. The measures that I announced at the last cabinet retreat with respect to international students, we are still measuring the outcomes, but for now we have seen a significant reduction in international students and obviously the postgraduate work permits that will come with them. That isn't the end of the measures that are to be put into place. The Bank of Canada has said that we need to take additional measures. That is absolutely correct. So more of those should come in the early fall. So this is an important aspect today of making sure that we have a system in some areas that's gotten overheated, that is under control. We'll continue to do that to make sure that the people that are here temporarily are properly welcomed here, but the welcome to Canada obviously is not boundless, and we have to make sure that it makes sense in the current economy for Canadians, obviously, but also for the job market as it continues to constrict, and we won't hesitate to take additional measures if necessary. Sean.
Excellent. Hello, everybody. Look, one of the things that I have come to understand over the course of the last 9 years serving as an MP is that you do really well when you listen to people in your communities. When I talk to people about the role of immigration in Canada, they remain uniquely supportive of the need to welcome newcomers, to bolster our healthcare system, to make sure that they help drive our economy. But they also want to have their concerns, which are very fair concerns, reflected in government policy when it comes to making sure that we have the capacity to deliver social services that people depend upon, that our healthcare system can provide for a growing population, and that we have enough homes for the people who move to our country. Over the course of the last few years, we've been through some very interesting times. As we were coming out of the pandemic, we saw the news articles being written were focused on a record labor shortage with 1 million jobs that were open in the economy. We took a decision as a government at the time to listen to businesses then who said that thousands of them may potentially close, that could impact the livelihoods of tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of Canadian workers. As the landscape has shifted, we're no longer dealing with the same labor shortage that we were dealing with even just a couple of years ago. So too, the policy landscape has to shift. We expect that the changes made today could potentially reduce the pressure on tens of thousands of housing units right across the country. This is the kind of thing that we're going to continue to do by reflecting the feedback that we hear from Canadians, by looking at the need to continue to welcome permanent residents in numbers that are controlled and that we can build enough homes for, but that we also change the way we deal with our temporary programs, because as those you watching may know, the temporary programs have historically responded not to a level set by the federal government, but by the demand that we see from institutions in the case of the International Student Program and employers when it comes to the Temporary Foreign Worker Program. When we see certain institutions applying for, in some instances, tens of thousands of study permits without providing the housing necessary for the people who are coming to communities, we need to change course. When we see employers who are, despite changes to the rate of unemployment, making a significant number of applications to bring workers here for jobs that Canadians could do, we need to change course. So today's move is going to have a positive impact, both for the employability of young people in particular, as potentially going to relieve pressure on housing markets in certain parts of the country, and I'm looking forward to seeing the impact of these measures roll out in the months ahead. Thanks so much.
Good afternoon, Ministers. Marika Walsh with the Globe and Mail. Mr. Miller, I believe this question is for you. The Prime Minister said today that the Cabinet is considering, as part of these meetings and going forward, changes to the permanent resident numbers. Can you just clarify if that includes possible changes to the 2025 and 26 numbers, or if it's for after that?
I'd say, Marika, all options are currently on the table. It's not a discussion that's been had by Cabinet yet, but we're looking at a number of options that, frankly, Canadians have been talking to us about on the permanent residency numbers. Often at Cabinet we consider options that are pretty narrow. This will be a broad set of alternatives to have a complete discussion on. Look at where the country is currently, look at where the country is going, and making sure that we adjust. And so it'll include potential options on the upcoming year as well.
And just to clarify, what is the trajectory that the government wants to bring numbers down to? Is it pre-pandemic levels? You know, we've seen so much talk about how the line has gone up much faster in population growth since the pandemic. So are you trying to bring it back down to the pace of growth that's pre-pandemic or something in between? Can you give us a sense of the goal?
Well, look, I think fundamentally we're dealing with a conundrum that the Bank of Canada has itself laid out quite clearly. We have seen significant growth in in the economy that is due almost solely to immigration in the last few years, and net entrance into the workforce driven almost entirely by immigrants and immigration. This is a good thing. The IMF has said time and time again that we have avoided recession thanks to immigration, but it's come with a conundrum in and around affordability and around housing, and making sure we address that properly is something that every Canadian expects us to do, and not be dogmatic about it. As I took this position, I told people that I'm not someone that is beholden to any form of dogmatism, very open to making changes if the economy dictates it, if the social fabric dictated it. And so I've heard from provincial premiers, I've heard from my colleagues, counterparts in other provinces, I've heard directly from Canadians about where they see the direction of immigration going. And I think they're asking us to adjust. So the number of options that we'll be looking at, and it's not set in stone yet, Marika, at Cabinet in the next few weeks, will include a very, very robust discussion about where we think we should be going in the next 3 years as we set those level plans, and respond to the criticism that we've legitimately gotten from different sectors of society, which is to give a fuller picture of the temporary residential picture of Canada, because we know that a lot of those people that are becoming permanent residents are already here, and that impacts the analyses that are made by the Bank of Canada as they adjust and fixed interest rates, and giving them some clarity on that is key to
Okay, hi everyone. Great to see you here this morning. We are here to talk about the Prime Minister's announcement this morning that Canada will be imposing tariffs on Chinese EVs, on Chinese steel and aluminum, that we will be changing our EV incentive program in line with those tariffs, and that we will be launching a very fast 30-day consultation on batteries, battery parts, semiconductors, critical minerals and metals, and solar panels. On est ici pour discuter l'annonce du Premier ministre ce matin que le Canada va imposer, utilisant la section 53, les tarifs contre les véhicules électriques de la Chine, l'acier et l'aluminium de la Chine, qu'on va modifier nos subventions pour l'achat des véhicules électriques et qu'on va annoncer une très courte consultation concernant les tarifs contre les autres éléments de la chaîne d'approvisionnement.
Yeah, let me just say briefly, first of all, good morning. It's nice to be with you all, to be back. Listen, we're acting to protect our workers, to protect our industry, to protect, obviously, the generational investments that we have seen coming in our country. In order to thrive, we need to have, as Minister Freeland said, protection, but also we need to have a striving steel and aluminum industry in Canada. So today, I think it's really good news. It's good news for workers, good news for industry, and I think good news for Canadians, because that's what they expect from us. So, en français, écoutez, ce matin, on est ici parce qu'on veut protéger nos travailleurs, on veut protéger l'industrie, on veut protéger les investissements générationnels qu'on a vus. On sait qu'aujourd'hui, le Canada fait l'envie du monde dans la production de véhicules électriques. On a bâti une chaîne d'approvisionnement des plus complètes. Je rappelle même que Bloomberg a dit que le Canada était en tête de liste dans les prochains 30 ans pour bâtir les véhicules électriques. Évidemment, pour ça, il faut avoir une industrie forte dans la fabrication des véhicules électriques, mais aussi une industrie forte dans l'aluminium et de l'acier. C'est exactement ce qu'on fait. C'est une excellente nouvelle aujourd'hui pour les travailleurs et travailleuses à travers le pays. Une excellente nouvelle pour l'industrie et tous ceux qui sont dans la chaîne d'approvisionnement. Et je pense que c'est une excellente nouvelle aussi pour les consommateurs et les consommatrices canadiens.
Thanks. Really good to see everyone today. I just want to say thank you to all of those that we talked to over the last short little while to arrive at the government's decision. So to those that are part of auto parts, certainly the automobile industry, many of the workers, and of course those in the steel and aluminum industries, I want to thank everyone who's given us very, very excellent input to help us arrive at where we are today and the decision to impose the tariffs as we've taken the decision to do.
Ministers, Kate McKenna from CBC. If you could answer this question in both English and French, that would be great. Have you communicated with China about these tariffs, and how are you preparing for potential retaliatory measures?
So let me just start by saying our government's starting point is to act resolutely to defend the national interest, to defend Canadian workers, and to defend the Canadian economy. That's our starting point. And as Mary said, we spent the summer speaking in great detail with the leading stakeholders. So I met with car parts sector, car manufacturers, steel industry, aluminum industry, critical minerals and metals, and labor. And the message we heard was very, very clear. Now, of course, Canada needs to be ready for all manner of reactions, and we are. But our starting point is we have to do and we will do what the national interest, what Canadian workers require. Alors, pour nous, la chose principale, la chose la plus importante, c'est l'intérêt national, c'est l'intérêt des travailleurs et travailleuses canadiens, c'est l'intérêt national économique. Et on va toujours agir et faire ce qui est nécessaire pour protéger nos travailleurs et travailleuses, notre secteur manufacturier, notre économie. Évidemment, on doit être prête à toutes les réactions possibles et on est prêt. Je ne sais pas si quelqu'un veut.
I think it's no
Did you talk to China? Did China know this was coming?
Of course, Canada believes also in having open, frank, and candid conversations, and that is what we have been doing.
Moi, je vais placer le micro. Je comprends que vous voulez vous concentrer sur les...
Vous voulez nous rejoindre?
Non, merci. Je comprends que vous voulez vous concentrer sur les problèmes des Canadiens, que vous misez au cours de ce cabinet sur l'embellie économique. Est-ce que vous n'avez pas l'impression que vous fermez actuellement les yeux sur l'humeur des Canadiens, qui semble plus vous écouter? Est-ce que, en faisant ça, vous faites pas un certain aveuglement par rapport à ce qui se passe au Canada actuellement, puis l'humeur des électeurs?
Tous les ministres, tous les députés ont passé l'été sur le terrain. On a eu plusieurs conversations avec les Canadiens et Canadiennes dans nos comtés et aussi partout au pays. Pour nous, c'était une été d'être à l'écoute. C'est très important. Et aujourd'hui, et hier et demain, on est ensemble pour partager ce qu'on a entendu et aussi pour discuter comment on peut, comment on doit travailler pour répondre aux besoins des Canadiens et Canadiennes, pour livrer la marchandise pour les Canadiens et Canadiennes. François-Philippe, est-ce que tu veux
écoutez, moi, je pense que ça répond à l'humeur des Canadiens et Canadiennes. Ce que les gens nous ont dit, ce que la ministre Freeland disait, les gens veulent voir de l'action. Ils veulent voir un gouvernement qui est à l'écoute, mais qui aussi prend des mesures pour protéger les emplois, pour protéger l'industrie, pour finalement s'assurer que l'économie fonctionne pour l'ensemble des Canadiens et Canadiennes. Ça, c'est certainement ce qu'on a entendu. Ce que les gens nous parlaient, c'est des questions d'abordabilité. Donc, moi, chaque jour, avec mes collègues, on se lève et on dit, comment on peut faire pour rendre la vie plus abordable pour les Canadiens, au niveau de l'épicerie, au niveau, évidemment, du logement. Maintenant, on prend des mesures aussi qui vont protéger des bons emplois à travers le pays. Vous savez, l'industrie de l'acier, l'industrie de l'aluminium, l'industrie des véhicules électriques, c'est le futur. Alors, moi, je pense que si vous me demandez, les Canadiens et Canadiennes nous ont dit, écoutez-nous, comprenez-nous, c'est ce qu'on fait, mais agissez. Alors, moi, je pense qu'aujourd'hui, la réponse concrète, c'est des actes. Moi, je pense que les Canadiens veulent voir, c'est des actions, un gouvernement qui est déterminé, un gouvernement qui est optimiste. Puis je pense que la ministre Freeland, ce que le premier ministre a annoncé, ça va justement répondre à cette demande-là des Canadiens de voir des actions concrètes pour protéger leurs intérêts.
Je comprends, mais pourquoi on ne voit pas l'aiguille des sondages bouger? Si vous dites on est à l'écoute des Canadiens puis on les a entendus, pourquoi l'aiguille ne bouge pas? Ça fait 1 an là, quand même que vous traînez dans les sondages.
Nous sommes vraiment focusés sur les Canadiens et Canadiennes. Nous sommes focusés sur les conversations qu'on a eues pendant tout l'été et maintenant, et avec l'annonce d'aujourd'hui, et ce n'est pas la seule, on a fait aussi une annonce concernant le logement. On a fait aussi une annonce concernant les travailleurs temporaires. On est maintenant focusé sur notre travail. Et c'est répondre aux besoins des Canadiens et Canadiennes de rendre la vie plus abordable, de construire plus de logements plus vite et de faire croître l'économie canadienne.
Morning, Ministers. JP Tasker from CBC News. On the EV announcement, you probably know some climate activists are opposed to these sort of tariffs because they just want to get people into cheap EVs. They don't really care where they come from, and that cheap BYD vehicles might be a good thing for our climate goals and emissions in this country. What's your message to those who say these tariffs will actually have a detrimental effect on the adoption of EVs in this country?
So I'll start. My colleagues may want to continue. My reply is very clear and very categorical. We have a very thought-through rationale for imposing these tariffs, something that we have been discussing a lot among colleagues and most importantly with Canadians over the summer. The reality is China has an intentional state-directed policy of overcapacity and oversupply designed to cripple our own industries. Talk to the steel sector, talk to the aluminum sector to understand how effective that has already been. And we simply will not allow that to happen to our EV sector, which is showing such promise and in which we have invested so effectively. Now, it's also really important to remember what is this Chinese policy of oversupply and overcapacity built on? You know what it's built on? It is built on abysmal labor standards, and it is built on abysmal environmental standards. We are not going to build Canadian policy based on abuses of workers in China and based on pollution in China. So that is really our reply.
As you know, the Democrats in the U.S. have switched up their leader over the summer, and they're seeing some success in the polls. They're now competitive with Donald Trump, whereas before it seemed hopeless. And there's a lot of enthusiasm among party members. Does that give you pause and make you think maybe we should have a leadership swap here in this country to revive the Liberal fortunes?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
All of us here have tremendous confidence in the Prime Minister. We have confidence in him as the leader of our government, as the Prime Minister of Canada, and we have confidence in him as our party's leader, as the guy who is going to lead us into the next election.
Bonjour, Mylène Crête de la presse. Pourquoi attendez-vous avant d'imposer des tarifs sur d'autres secteurs critiques, là, les cellules solaires, entre autres, semi-conducteurs, etc.? Les États-Unis, eux, y étaient allés là, d'un coup sec.
Parce que pour nous, c'est très important de baser nos actions sur les conversations avec les Canadiens et Canadiennes. Et pendant l'été, les ministres qui sont ici, nous avons fait un très important travail en parlant avec les industries. Moi, personnellement, j'ai eu des réunions avec les manufacturiers dans le chaîne d'approvisionnement pour les voitures. J'ai eu les réunions avec les manufacturiers des voitures. J'ai parlé avec les leaders du secteur d'acier, les leaders du secteur d'aluminium. J'ai parlé avec les mineurs et j'ai parlé avec les syndicats. Alors, c'est très important parce que c'est du travail très précis. Et c'est important quand on fait des actions, et c'est une action très forte du côté du Canada, de le faire basé sur les conversations. Aujourd'hui, annonce qu'on va avoir une consultation sur le reste de la chaîne d'approvisionnement. Ce sera une consultation courte, juste de 30 jours, parce qu'on comprend que c'est important de parler avec les gens impliqués dans le secteur avant d'annoncer les mesures précises. Et je veux juste préciser une chose que vous avez mentionnée dans votre question. Et c'est important de comprendre que nos partenaires américains, qui sont évidemment très importants pour nous du côté économique, ils ont annoncé des tarifs, mais les mesures ne sont pas en vigueur. Alors, le Canada, nous faisons notre travail et c'est important pour nous de travailler en étroite collaboration avec nos partenaires dans le G7, nos partenaires, nos voisins américains. Et grâce à l'annonce que le Premier ministre a faite ce matin, le Canada sera capable d'agir en même temps que nos plus importants partenaires économiques vont agir.
Merci. Monsieur Champagne, vous avez fait savoir la semaine dernière que vous n'alliez pas vous présenter dans la course à la direction du Parti libéral du Québec. Est-ce que votre collègue Pablo Rodriguez devrait se décider plus tôt que tard?
Ben écoutez, je vais parler pour moi-même parce que vous savez que c'est gage de sagesse en politique de parler pour soi-même plutôt que pour les autres. Mais ce que je peux vous dire, c'est que oui, à ce moment-là, j'ai été très clair que je fermais cette porte-là du Parti libéral du Québec. Mais ce qui nous amène aussi au travail qu'on fait aujourd'hui. Le travail qu'on fait aujourd'hui, juste pour être clair, c'est cette réunion-là du cabinet, pour moi, ça vient un moment critique au niveau même historique, parce que ce qu'on est en train de faire, vous savez, les mesures qu'on a annoncées aujourd'hui vont avoir un impact sur le très long terme. Chacune des mesures qu'on prend aujourd'hui, même les mesures qu'on a prises au niveau de la concurrence plutôt, les autres mesures qu'on a prises dans le logement, les annonces en immigration, les annonces qu'on a faites récemment vont porter fruit sur le long terme. Alors, je pense que vous devez voir mon rôle ici aujourd'hui. Je l'ai toujours dit, ça prend des voix fortes du Québec à Ottawa pour faire avancer le Québec et faire avancer l'entièreté du pays. Alors, moi, j'ai été clair là-dessus et j'ai décidé de venir.
Sachant qu'il peut peut-être quitter.
Ben écoutez, comme je vous dis, chacun des collègues est ici, chacun apporte sa contribution, puis on est content d'avoir Pablo Rodriguez comme lieutenant du Québec qui fait son travail. On va continuer d'appuyer là-dedans.
Et on est content de voir François Philippe à côté de nous.
Hi, Ministers. Brennan McDonald, CTV News. How will these tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles impact your government's transitional targets for EVs? Are they still achievable, or are they in jeopardy now?
They're absolutely still achievable, and that is one of the things that we spent some time over the summer working on, that we have been having really important discussions with industry leaders, with labor, with environmental groups, and with our colleagues around the cabinet table.
Ashley?
What's your message to caucus members who want to see some sort of big political reset come out of this cabinet meeting and some major changes moving forward to try to turn the party's political fortunes around?
I spent the summer talking with a lot of members of our caucus. I think I've had one-on-one conversations just this summer with around 70 MPs. And the message that I heard from caucus is we believe in the work that we are doing. And we know we need to be listening to Canadians. We know we need to be delivering for Canadians on their key priorities. And all of caucus, all of cabinet spent the summer really listening. And certainly what I heard, certainly what Ontario caucus heard, was housing, affordability, economic growth. That is what Canadians want. They need us to work hard to deliver on those priorities, and I think that's what you see us here focused on. You want to?
Well, I think that was.
Okay. Okay.
Oui.
Je pense que tout le caucus libéral et nous trois sommes aussi les membres du caucus libéral. Nous avons passé l'été à l'écoute aux Canadiens. Et ce qu'on a entendu du côté des Canadiens, c'est qu'on a besoin de plus de logements, du logement qu'on peut acheter, du logement qui est abordable pour les Canadiens et Canadiennes, surtout pour les jeunes. Que l'abordabilité en général reste un enjeu important et qu'on a besoin de croissance économique et du bon travail bien rémunéré. C'est ce que les Canadiens, du quoi les Canadiens ont besoin. Et nous tous, le cabinet, le caucus, nous tous sommes très, très focusés sur ces priorités des Canadiens. Nous comprenons l'importance de maintenant livrer la marchandise pour les Canadiens et Canadiennes.
Non, mais moi, j'ajouterais seulement, on l'a dit, puis la ministre Freeland l'a bien expliqué, je pense que la question qui préoccupe les Canadiens présentement, c'est la question de l'abordabilité. C'est ce qu'on a entendu, puis honnêtement, je vous dirais, l'abordabilité, évidemment, c'est au niveau de l'épicerie, c'est au niveau, évidemment, du logement. Il y a des questions sur l'immigration, on a agi. Mais les Canadiens, moi, je peux vous dire, j'en ai rencontré du monde, là, pas seulement dans les inondations à Louisville, mais un peu partout. Les gens veulent voir un gouvernement qui prend action, qui arrive avec une vision claire, qui prend des mesures ciblées, qui est là pour défendre les intérêts des Canadiens de tous les jours. Moi, je pense qu'il y a un message qu'on a reçu, là, c'est prenez nos enjeux de tous les jours, faites-les vôtres. Défendez nos intérêts, faites avancer pour qu'on ait des mesures d'abordabilité. La concurrence, on en parlait ce matin sur un panel, c'est une des choses les plus importantes. Vous savez, plusieurs des mesures qu'on a prises n'ont pas un impact direct aujourd'hui, mais les gens veulent voir un niveau d'optimisme dans l'économie. Puis je pense que, comme la ministre Freeland disait, on s'en va dans cette direction-là. Les chiffres sont bons. Puis je pense que la meilleure façon de démontrer aux Canadiens, aux Canadiennes, que l'énergie est là, c'est d'arriver avec un message optimiste. Puis vous savez, l'optimisme, c'est contagieux. Donc on va continuer de démontrer l'écoute qu'on a eue, mais l'écoute aussi qui est suivie par des actions concrètes. Puis ce matin, je pense que ce que vous avez vu de la ministre Freeland, de la ministre Eng, c'est une action concrète. Là, les travailleurs de l'aluminium au Saguenay nous écoutent aujourd'hui. Les gens qui sont dans les aciéries où j'ai visité, par exemple, à Contrecoeur, nous écoutent. Ces gens-là, je pense qu'aujourd'hui, nous disent merci. Vous nous avez écoutés cet été, vous prenez action au mois d'août. C'est comme ça qu'on va préserver nos emplois, c'est comme ça qu'on va faire croître l'économie canadienne. Puis à ce moment-là, c'est une bonne nouvelle pour tout le monde.
OK, merci.
Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.